5th Canto, Chapter 12, Text number 3. Tasmad bhavantam mama samshayartam prakshyami paschad aduna subodham adhyatma yoga gratitam tavoktam akyahi kautuhala chetasome. Tasmad bhavantam mama samshayartam prakshyami paschad aduna subodham adhyatma yoga gratitam tavoktam akyahi kautuhala chetasome. Tasmad bhavantam mama samshayartam prakshyami paschad aduna subodham adhyatma yoga gratitam tavoktam akyahi kautuhala chetasome. Word for word translation says, Tasmat, therefore, bhavantam, to you, mama of me, samkshaya artam, the subject matter that is not clear to me. Or samkshaya means doubt. So something that we might doubt is similarly being described. Prakshyami, I shall submit. Paschat, afterwards. Aduna, now. Subodham, so that it can be clearly understood. Adhyatma yoga, of mystic instruction for self-realization. Gratitam, as composed. Tava, your. Uktam, speech. Akyahi, please explain again. Kautuhala chetasaha, whose mind is very inquisitive to understand the mystery of such statements. May, to me. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. This is Maharaj Rahugana speaking to his guru, Jad Bharat. Whatever doubts I have about a particular subject matter, I shall ask you about later. For the time being, these mysterious yoga instructions you have given me for self-realization appear very difficult to understand. Please repeat them in a simple way so that I can understand them. My mind is very inquisitive and I want to understand this clearly. Wow. Purport. The Vedic literature instructs, Tasmad gunam prapadyeta jigashu shreya uttamam. An intelligent man must be very inquisitive to know the transcendental science deeply. Therefore, one must approach a guru, a spiritual master. Although Jad Bharat explained everything to Maharaj Rahugana, it appears that his intelligence was not perfect enough to understand clearly. He therefore requested a further explanation. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. The student must approach a spiritual master and surrender unto him fully. Pranipatina. He must also question him in order to understand his instructions. Pariprashnena. One should not only surrender to the spiritual master, but also render loving service unto him. Sevaya. So that the spiritual master will be pleased with the student and explain the transcendental subject matter more clearly. A challenging spirit before the spiritual master should be avoided if one is at all interested in learning the Vedic instructions in depth. Glorious purport by His Divine Grace. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Svaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scham Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scha. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, Dinabandha Jagatpate, Gopesha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta Namostute, Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhana Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Maharaj Rahugana, he says to Jad Bharat, well, no longer pretending to be Jadda, he says to Bharat that I have doubts about particular subject matters that you've explained, and I'm going to ask you. For the time being, these mysterious yoga instructions you have given me for self-realization appear very difficult to understand. Please repeat them in a simple way so that I can understand them. My mind is very inquisitive and I want to understand this clearly. So he's expressing the appropriate attitude and the legal function of the disciple to inquire further, to ask for explanation that's more simple. You're allowed to do that. If you don't understand something, we're allowed to ask. In fact, it is discouraged that we pretend that we know everything in front of the guru. It's important for us to accept our foolishness and therefore have the potential to learn more. Even the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya, demonstrated this to his spiritual master. He said that I am a fool, or his spiritual master told him, Murka tumi tumar nahik vedantadikar, Krishna mantra japa sada e mantra sara. Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master, Ishvara Chandrapuri, apparently told him in the service of the spiritual master that you're not qualified to understand Vedanta. You can't do it. Better you just chant Hare Krishna. Krishna mantra japa sada e mantra sara. This is the essence of all mantras and the essence of all Vedic teachings. So it's very normal for the spiritual master to simplify the transcendental science for someone who can't understand fully. And we shouldn't shy away from that natural function by pretending that we know everything in front of Gurudev. And I think you all know what I'm talking about. We want Gurudev to think that we're smart, that we're very Krishna conscious. And so even though there's many doubts about things, we just don't ask. But as is being described by Srila Prabhupada in this purport, pariprashnena, we're supposed to ask about everything. The Sanskrit is very interesting. Prashna is a question, an inquiry. And pari is a prefix, just like we use in Latin and then translate into English, like peri, perimeter, peripheral, like all around, everywhere. So we're supposed to inquire about everything, all around the subject. Pariprashnena is what Krishna is saying. This is the science of spiritual master. It's not just the sentiment, putting the picture on the wall and telling everybody, I've got a spiritual name. But to apply that relationship scientifically, then pariprashnena, we must inquire all around about everything, whenever there's any kind of doubt. Now, that doesn't mean we should do it in every Bhagavatam class and ask something which might also create doubts amongst other people. We see that demonstrated. I'm sorry, my voice is just like on another planet right now. But we see that demonstrated by Maharaj Parikshit to Shukadeva Goswami. He was cautious about asking certain questions, knowing that some people in the audience didn't have so much faith in Krishna. So he wanted to inquire, but he had some reservation. He still did. And with Lord Chaitanya also, he would only discuss some more esoteric topics in certain sangha. So it's not that in any scenario, any circumstance, we should ask the spiritual master about which gopi is serving Krishna in which way, and what's happening in the bushes down by the bank of the Jamuna. But when the circumstances are appropriate, we should ask about every single thing. Pariprashnena, that's how we make the relationship scientific. It's a threefold formula for guru success. Oh, I should say for disciple success in relationship with the guru. One has to inquire about everything. One should serve with love. And one must be submissive. If we don't have those three ingredients, then the recipe will fail. It will fall apart and it won't be effective. We see that many people can ask questions, but not in a submissive attitude. Might be asking some challenging question. Like I'd witnessed. Actually, I shouldn't even give an example. I witnessed someone being very challenging to my spiritual master. And he very, very humbly, very patiently gave an answer, but implied that, such an attitude is not going to bear the results that you're hoping for. And as was to be expected, this person was falling from grace, unfortunately. Hopefully in the next life, they'll continue and pick up a challenging question. And there's no obligation for the guru to answer because the spiritual master is ultimately a person, not just some nebulous blob or some sort of Hollywood entity. We have these Hollywood notions of a guru floating through the air, being some sort of omniscient, omnipresent, Ubermensch. It's a person. Spiritual master is a person who knows Krishna and who loves Krishna and can help a person to love Krishna. And so they're not obligated to answer a question if it's not asked in a genuine, submissive spirit. So an essential ingredient in that recipe of disciple success is pranipatina. One must actually be submissive. You have to have some faith that this person can really help me to know Krishna. If that's not there and you're not submissive, then what's the point? Maybe in your next life. Or find a person to whom you can really submit and genuinely learn. And then the third ingredient in the disciple success recipe is that there must be seva. There must be loving service. Otherwise, what's the point? The spiritual master says, you are part and parcel of Krishna. And to realize yourself as part of Krishna, you must chant 16 rounds every day. This is a service that we do. And if we say, I like the part where he says I'm part of Krishna, but I don't like the part where I have to do something, then you can't learn. You can't learn without the action of Krishna consciousness. Ours is not an armchair philosophy. Ours is meant to be realized. And what is ultimately meant to be realized in the transcendental science is our relationship with Krishna. It's bhakti yoga, a relationship of love and devotion. So if we're not going to act upon that with service, then we cannot learn. So that's why seva is part of the disciple success recipe. The spiritual master gives us some service to do. And ultimately, it's meant to learn to love Krishna. When we serve the spiritual master humbly, trying to give him or her a comfortable experience, try to give them nice prasadam or to take care of their personal needs. Ultimately, this is to help us learn to serve Krishna, to serve Radha and Krishna in the spiritual world. We're not meant to just have theoretical knowledge in our brain, downloading some information, but we're meant to learn that the relationship is everything. It's paramount. Unlike common teachers in a university, the person is not so important. You just take the information and you go. And if that professor almost inevitably falls down because of approaching in a sexual manner one of his students, which is like every other day at Penn State. Hare Krishna. It's a school famous for sexual impropriety amongst its staff, beginning with the original famous Sandusky case. And if you learn something from a teacher and then later he's fired because he's sending inappropriate messages to his 18-year-old students, it's like it doesn't matter. You have the information. But the relationship with the guru is very important. The relationship with that individual is very significant. We learn from that individual how to please Krishna. They have a particular mood in devotion. And by serving that person, we learn the same mood of pleasing Krishna. That's ultimately the goal, not to just download information and then leave, but to cultivate the same mood in serving Krishna, at least the mood of Dasya Prema, the ecstasy of servitude. And then gradually more refined and sophisticated moods of devotion can gradually can awaken, particularly our Siddhasvarupa, our original perfect mood of devotion. So that's why that part of the recipe is essential. There must be service to the spiritual master to learn and to realize. Not just questions, we're not just downloading information, but questions asked submissively, meaning with real faith that this person knows and can teach me, and then service rendered so that we get profound realization. Vijnana, not just the jnana, the knowledge, but the vijnana. So the spiritual master is a transcendental science, as Prabhupada says in this purport. An intelligent man must be very inquisitive to know the transcendental science deeply. And if we're going to treat this subject as transcendental science, then we have to know the particulars of the science. We also have to know who is qualified to be guru. What is that relationship really supposed to look like? If we don't have a scientific understanding, then we might never approach a spiritual master because we think that it's just some luck of the draw. Or we might think that, only a spiritual master is a person who's floating 3 feet above the ground and can read my mind or can shoot lightning bolts out of his backside or something. I see all the time to the people that we're trying to share Krishna consciousness with that the notion of the spiritual master is just way out in outer space. Oftentimes people tell me, oh, you're supposed to just feel in your heart, this powerful, like electric connection that might be there. I mean, that's great. You can feel a powerful electric connection to a car or to a new pair of jeans. I mean, they walk down the street and they see some outfit in the window and they feel a powerful electric connection to it. Doesn't mean that it's the spiritual master. So many people, they have a strange notion. So it's important for us to present that the relationship with the guru is scientific, and it is a relationship. Just like in a relationship, people have their expectations. Similarly, the guru, being an individual, has expectations, and those expectations might be different from another one. The relationship is essential because they're real people. And we're trying to depersonalize the spiritual master, then we won't value that they have differences. We might feel some doubts about that because there's differences. One guru does like this, another guru does like that. And that's actually the indication of their personal identity. That's the indication that bhakti yoga is ultimately personal. Not that we should feel doubt that there's some difference between them. Even 550 odd years ago, Rupa Goswami was making this clear to us, perhaps anticipating modern ISKCON struggles. He wrote in his Nectar of Devotion, his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that an essential principle is to learn from a spiritual master, but the details, what that spiritual master teaches to the disciple or how they engage that disciple in service, that detail might be very different. The essential principle is one must learn from a guru, a devotee of Krishna. But how that guru engages a person in service is a detail that can vary from person to person or from place to place. And so the guru is a person with a relationship, and those expectations in that relationship can change. That's another important thing for those of us who have had a relationship with our spiritual master for many years. We should recognize that expectation can change. We shouldn't just assume that, well, when I first met Gurudev, he was always just so encouraging and always just said nice things and just told me to chant. And that's it. Now I'm done. No, if we've been at it for many years, we should expect that the Guru's expectations of us has also changed. And we should try to meet that expectation, probably by doing more, better, more attentive hearing and chanting, more service for Krishna, more service to other devotees. Srila Prabhupada demonstrated this. His expectations changed. Consider that when Srila Prabhupada first came to America, he had this idea that everyone would chant 64 rounds. Prabhupada had the idea that if someone says they're going to do something, then they're going to do it. And so therefore, he was doing marriages, giving initiations, giving people sannyas initiation. And then perhaps, I'm sure he had some idea, but I think perhaps he was surprised to see that it wasn't always the case, that just because someone said they were going to do something, that therefore they actually did it. So he changed his expectations and he adjusted the conditions of the relationship from 64 rounds to 16, for one thing, just because we are not so attached to chanting Krishna's names. And actually, at some point, he stopped doing marriages. He'd stopped doing marriage ceremonies for his disciples because he recognized that although they're making the vows, they're not going to do it. And knowing that Srila Prabhupada could be implicated, he just stopped doing those. So he changed his expectations. He had to adjust. And I think that's very significant. We have to recognize that the Guru is ultimately a relationship. It's not a static thing. It's not just some machine, like Gurudeva is a machine. You just press the right buttons and you're done. Or it's not like some assignment that you've completed. Now I've done the fire sacrifice and I've gotten my name and now I'm done. It's a dynamic, ongoing relationship. Gurudev can change their expectations. And our expectation of the spiritual master should also develop. In the beginning, we might consider, our expectations of the Guru could be pretty naive. I know when I first saw my spiritual master in New Zealand, my expectations were very naive. I looked at him and I thought, yeah, I can do that. A couple of years, surely I'll be doing the same thing. But then, of course, by his grace and in his association, I came to realize, wow, it's very, very significant and very challenging to give shelter to so many people and to help them. And now what I've come to expect from my spiritual master is so much more profound and amazing. That in the beginning, I thought he was just going to be the solution to my problems, give me all sorts of advice, financial advice, relationship advice, how I can be successful in my material life. That was in the beginning, but now I see my spiritual master as one demonstrating Vraja Bhakti. Especially more recently, in recent years, I can say, at least for my spiritual master, he certainly earned the right to indulge in enjoying Krishna Prema. And we see that in his recent lecture, speaking because there are several disciples of Devamrita Swami here. You see that in more recent lectures, enjoying getting deep into contemplation of Vraja Bhakti, how the devotees in Vrindavan are loving Krishna, pleasing Krishna. He's absolutely earned the right to do so after many decades of hard service to managing ISKCON and various ups and downs and all around. So the expectation can change and can develop. Those of us who have been with the spiritual master for a while should start to expect that in his retirement, he can enjoy more intensified hearing and chanting about Krishna. So, and perhaps the spiritual master expects more from us to take care of other disciples, to take care of his other disciples, to be more of a guide. In fact, all of us are meant to be guru. This is the expectation of Srila Prabhupada. If we're going to talk about relationships and expectations and relationships, Prabhupada expects all of us to be guru. And you might think, Yasodeva, what a controversial thing to say. In 2023, the guru is very sacred. It's a very lofty role and position And yet, how many times did His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, how many times did he quote the verse, Yarideka Tarikaha Krishna Upadesh Amara Agyaya Guruhana Tare Edesh? How many times did Srila Prabhupada quote this verse? I'll give you the answer. It's like between 300 and 400 times. Hold on a second. The divine light is shining right in my face. Between 300 and 400 times, Srila Prabhupada quoted this verse, which is spoken by Lord Chaitanya, wherein he says, on my order, become guru and tell everyone you meet about Krishna. Like 300 to 400 times, Srila Prabhupada said this verse. We're all meant to be guru. All of us have some responsibility, and all of us will at some point help other devotees, to help to guide them, to share our experiences, to share what knowledge that we have, what realization, and that's the role of guru. Now, we might be a Vartma Pradakshina guru, right? One who just shows the path. We might give some shiksha, some guidance, some instruction. And some few will also give diksha, create that formal, legally binding relationship. But all of us will do it. All of us are meant to be acharya. Acharya just means one who's prachar and achar. What they say and what they do is congruent. That's acharya, who leads by example. All of us are meant to be acharya. It's not like only the spiritual master is supposed to lead by example. Only those who are initiating tens of thousands of disciples are supposed to tell other people about Krishna, and the rest of us are just supposed to just sit on our hands and keep our mouths shut. We're all supposed to do it, but we're like little acharya. And Srila Prabhupada is very special acharya, founder acharya of ISKCON. Actually, he coined for himself a unique phrase, knowing that it would be essential for maintaining the integrity of ISKCON in the future. He established himself as founder acharya, although there are many acharyas. Prabhupada established himself as founder acharya, which is another conversation, a very important one. But what I want to get into now is that we're all supposed to be guru. We're all supposed to teach. We're all supposed to guide someone, to help others to grow in Krishna consciousness, or to show them the path of Krishna consciousness. If you just give somebody a book, you're showing them the path. If you just answer a few questions to someone who's brand new, and that way you're acting as guru. So we're all supposed to do that. I mean, Prabhupada really insisted that every person, man, woman, even children, should be guru and tell other people about Krishna. Kiba vripa, kibra nyasi, shudra kinanyoy, ye Krishna tattva veta se guru hoy. If you have a little Krishna tattva, doesn't matter what your background is, you're supposed to help others to learn about Krishna. And that's the spiritual master. Now, we might not be Diksha Guru, of course. We shouldn't presume ourselves to go out and take that responsibility of creating the formal relationship. That person has the most responsibility. But we give shiksha, we give guidance, we show the path. And so we're also acting as guru. It doesn't matter whether you are a great brahmana or a sannyasi or a shudra. It does matter if you're a woman, however, apparently. I'm sorry, a little tongue-in-cheek sarcasm, because even though the verse says kibarvipa, kibranyasi, shudra, implying that, anyone from any background. And in another verse elsewhere says, even if you're a dog eater, still that person can be guru if they're a devotee of Krishna. Remarkably, there's still some people in this world who, ignoring these verses that Prabhupada quoted hundreds of times, think that everyone is qualified, even dog eaters and laborers, but not women. The chauvinism and the misogyny is apparent. Anyway, that's another topic, which is almost nearly resolved. So I won't get into that. My point is that we're all meant to be guru. Everybody wanted everyone. Prabhupada wanted everyone to help others in Krishna consciousness and not just be some selfish miser. How many times do we hear Prabhupada say, don't be a miser? A miser is someone who has the knowledge of Krishna and they keep it to themselves. They don't help others. They don't share it. How many times do we hear Srila Prabhupada saying, don't be a miser? It's not just like some trophy, I'm guru. It's not some status symbol. It's about being willing to sacrifice a little bit of my own time, to stop being so selfish, sacrifice a little bit of my time and concern for myself and try to help somebody else in Krishna consciousness. There's no doubt that Srila Prabhupada asked all of us to do that. And do you know why Srila Prabhupada asked all of us to do that? Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, asked all of us to do that. Yare deka tare kaha, that means wherever you go, whomever you meet. Yare deka tare kaha Krishna upadesha. Tell someone about Krishna. Help them come close to Krishna. Amara agyaya. He said, this is my order. Guru hanatari edesh. And this is my order, that you become guru and deliver everyone in this land. So we should recognize we're meant to do this too. Let's take up the mantle and the responsibility of helping others in Krishna consciousness, to give some guidance, to share some experience that we might have, to care, and to reach out to those who maybe are struggling, to reach out for their own help. That's very common in Kali Yuga. People don't want to ask for help. People are insecure about, getting assistance. And so we reach out, just like Srila Prabhupada reached out to everyone in the whole world. We can at least reach out to a few friends, on WhatsApp or by email or something. Call them. Srila Prabhupada reached out to the whole world, knowing these people, they need help, but they're not going to ask for it. So we can do the same. In this way, we're meant to be guru, just like Srila Prabhupada. So the spiritual master, it is a scientific thing. It's a very special scientific thing. If we fail to understand the science, like in reference to these verses that Prabhupada's quoting, and if we think that the spiritual master is this very esoteric, Superman, mysterious entity, then we won't do it. And that's the big problem. If we understand that scientifically, pranipatena, pariprashnena sevaya, if we understand tasmad gunam prapadyeta jigashu shreya uttamam, shabde paratanishna tam brahma upashamashrayam, if we understand scientifically what is the qualification of the student and the teacher, we understand the instruction given by Srila Prabhupada so many times. We understand that it's actually a science and a relationship, then we'll really do it. We'll do it for others. But if we treat the spiritual master like some sort of, mythical creature from another dimension, then we won't do it. And then we won't be following the instructions of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and of his divine grace. But we want to follow their instructions. And so therefore we should also do it. We should also care for other devotees, give them guidance and experience as far as we have realized, and help others to become Krishna conscious, reach out and help others. And in this way, Amaragaya Guru Hanatari Eidesh, wherever we may be, whatever land is our domain, we can help to spread Krishna consciousness there. So it's very, very special. It's very wonderful service, and we should try our best to do it, following in the footsteps of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Any thoughts or comments on that, on what I've said this far? I hope everyone's feeling some encouragement that I can also help other people in Krishna consciousness. Whatever your level of realization is, even if all you realize so far is that I take prasadam and it's great, and when we jump up and down in kirtan, I feel something just amazing. If that's all you've realized, then just help other people to realize that too. And then you're guru. you know? And it's not even just, oh, there are questions. Okay. But I got to say another thing. It's not just like, you have to be some great liberated soul. No, you don't even have to be. You don't even have to be a liberated soul. Are you ready for this? I'm going to share a really important statement that I've read in Srila Prabhupada's books. It's not even that one must be a fully liberated soul, you know, and have realized your Siddha Swarupa, your original form in Goloka Vrindavan. Prabhupada says in the purport to chapter 18 of Canto 4, that although a follower may not be a liberated person, if he follows the supreme liberated personality of Godhead, his actions are naturally liberated from the contamination of the material nature. Lord Chaitanya therefore says, by my order, you may become a spiritual master. One can immediately become a spiritual master by having full faith in the transcendental words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and by following his instructions. There, Prabhupada saying, even if you're not a fully liberated person, even if you still got issues, that's the point, even if you still got problems, but you're just trying to follow the instructions of your spiritual master, follow the order of Lord Chaitanya, then you can be guru and help someone, you know, up to your own level. So we shouldn't think that, no, I'm not qualified to help. No, even if you just have a little realization that when I chant Hare Krishna, I feel some connection with God. You just tell somebody that. And that's acting as guru. You know who my first guru was? Some stoned hippie chick. We were sitting in the back of some station wagon. Believe it or not, there were still station wagons when I was growing up in Palo Alto, California, smoking a doobie. And this girl's like, passing the blunt and saying, well, I just heard this far out thing that all of the universes, they expanded from the body of Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu is lying in the causal ocean. So I guess somebody gave her a book, you know, somewhere, maybe Vaisheshika Prabhu or his team. And so she'd read something or saw some picture, you know, and she was just totally stoned and just thinks it's an amazing concept that all the universes are expanding from the body of Mahavishnu. And she's telling me this while we're smoking some blunt in the back of a station wagon. But it really, you know, put this interesting impression in me that God is something so much more than just this blob in the sky. It's the first time I started hearing about Krishna. That's from this stoned chick. So in that sense, she became guru. She put me on the path. So all of us can do a lot better than this stoned friend of mine. Trust me, we can all do a lot better. We just have to have some confidence that if you've heard about Krishna, you have some faith in that, you share it with others. Even if not fully liberated, even if we still have some problems, some attachments, still we can help someone up to our level of realization. Prabhupada wanted all of us to do that, to act as guru for others. Hare Krishna. So Srimati Lauren has written something in the chat here. She says, Hare Krishna, Yasodeva. Thank you for a nice class. How do you truly know? How do you truly know if we can trust a spiritual master? With all due respect, how do we know if they're legit? Thank you for asking. I've heard of some terrible things happening in ISKCON, and naturally it's caused me to put my guard up, especially around the idea of having a guru. Otherwise, I've noticed that Prabhupada really stressed the importance of having a guru. Lauren, it's totally fine for you to have that doubt. Just like Maharaj Rahugana is sharing his doubt. It's totally normal. And you shouldn't think that it's not an appropriate question to ask. Yes, unfortunately, we had some wild history in the heyday of ISKCON. Srila Prabhupada was a revolutionary, still is, revolutionizing the world. And he recognized for him to really get bhakti yoga situated all around the world, he had to move fast and break things, to quote the late Steve Jobs. You gotta push the limit on some things to make it really happen, to make it happen in a strong way, in a quick way. And so Prabhupada was remarkably liberal and flexible and so forward thinking, that he engaged in that service of spiritual master some people who he knew, had the potential to be very successful and to really help others. But I'm sure he recognized that there was also potential that they would struggle with the service. And he was right in both regards, as always. At the time of Srila Prabhupada's passing, when he recognized that he would be leaving this world, he employed 11 devotees in particular to start doing that service of initiating disciples, to do the Diksha Guru part. We have to remember that there are 3 types of guru. One who just kind of shows you something about Krishna consciousness, gets you started in that path, is called Vartma Pradakshina Guru. And one who gives you some guidance, some instruction, is called a Shiksha Guru. And this is the most common, of course. Someone who helps you, gives you some knowledge. You ask a question, you get some answer from somebody, or they share their realization. They're giving you Shiksha, some guidance, some instruction. And then one who does Diksha, one who formally creates that relationship and takes a lot of responsibility for a person's guidance. That Diksha Guru is more rare. So Srila Prabhupada asked 11 devotees in particular to become Diksha Guru. And many of them struggled. They were still very young. Some, whom I won't name, they'd only been devotees for like 6 years, 7 years. Can you imagine? But, Srila Prabhupada had a lot of faith that they will try their best. Surely they were all sincere in their attempt, at least at the time that Srila Prabhupada was around and just leaving this world. But because, let's be honest, because some were naive and because some weren't perhaps treating the spiritual master like a science, they just tried to imitate Srila Prabhupada, just tried to do exactly what Srila Prabhupada did. Prabhupada was able to receive all sorts of worship and praise, and it didn't affect him. It wasn't his concern. His concern was for people in general, and so he's always traveling around teaching Krishna consciousness. But these other devotees, when they would receive similar worship and praise, it did affect them, unfortunately, and some weren't able to handle it and maintain their status and their purity. And so those devotees and the whole community of ISKCON, we learned over the course of a few years the science of Krishna consciousness. I don't think anyone would be too upset if I say that in the beginning there was a lot of naivety. There's a lot of naivety and not so much focus on the transcendental science, Srila Prabhupada says in this purport. But we have since then understood the science. We've learned, and just like in any science, you have an experiment. Sometimes it doesn't work, but you still learn something. Sometimes it does work and you learn something. Sometimes it doesn't work and you still learn. Okay, how are we supposed to do this correctly? So I should say, I'd like to give you some confidence that since that time, the wild late 70s and 80s, after Srila Prabhupada's passing, we have learned a lot more about how the relationship works scientifically and effectively. And so we don't see nearly as many problems as what used to happen in the past, fortunately. And there have been many great, amazing devotees who, even from the time of Srila Prabhupada's passing, have been stalwart and focused and have not swayed from that responsibility of initiating devotees into the sampradaya. So we should know that it is entirely possible and has been done by many. So yes, because there is a little risk, because there have been some fall downs, to use the ISKCON vernacular, because there have been some misdemeanors and even crimes in the name of Guru. Therefore, it behooves us to look at it very intelligently and recognize who's actually qualified. We have learned a lot, and it's the responsibility of a prospective disciple who wants to have a genuine teacher to look at the science and recognize who's a genuine spiritual master. That's on you, Lauren. I'm sure you see the value there. I'm sure you see that I can gain so much from having the guidance of someone who's so dear to Krishna. I can learn how to love Krishna more. If I have that person, if I have a relationship with that person in my life, I'm sure you see the value, but it's on you to recognize scientifically who is qualified. And it's on the institution of ISKCON to give you the resources to make that decision. And nowadays, ISKCON does that. This is something that we didn't do years ago. Even when I came along, there was no disciple course. Nowadays, pretty much everywhere, someone who wants to be initiated, have diksha with a guru in ISKCON, has to take a course, either online or in person. It's not like a huge class or anything, but making very clear that that person knows, what a spiritual master is and how that relationship's supposed to function and how to recognize someone who's qualified so that they can approach that subject, in the right headspace and not just with some airy-fairy idea about how Gurudev is just like some angel who's going to wave a magic wand and solve all my problems. We can attribute a lot of the troubles that have happened with gurus in ISKCON to also the naivety of disciples. There are many persons who were approaching someone who was not qualified and giving them praise that they didn't really deserve and treating them in ways that they shouldn't have. And, probably none of us could handle that, being treated like God. It was the naivety of their followers also. So nowadays we do a lot better because we're much more intelligent. We're approaching this scientifically. As Prabhupada says in this purport, transcendental science. So I'd like to tell you, Lauren, that you can have a bit more confidence that even though there has been an unfortunate history with spiritual masters in ISKCON, now those issues are much more rare, because we have learned from mistakes also. Just like in any scientific experiment, you learn when you do it wrong. If you really want the end result, you also learn from doing it wrong. And fortunately, the genuine devotees in our community have done exactly that. And they've made the whole community of guru and disciple much more wholesome, much more secure, much more effective. But still, because it is a very significant relationship, as you're recognizing, still it is important for you to take responsibility to understand what sort of qualities you should look for in a spiritual master. And we learn about those qualities in Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada references in the beginning of this verse, Tasmad Gurum Prapadyeta Jigashu Shreya Uttamam. What is that verse number? I wonder if anyone can find it, because Prabhupada didn't quote it here. But it says, Shabde Pare Chanishnatam Brahmanu Pashamashrayam. First, it gives the qualification of the disciple, and then it gives the qualification of the guru. The qualification of the disciple is that one should approach the guru who is Jigashu Shreya Uttamam, one who really wants to know what is their ultimate benefit. So that's your qualification. You have to first ask yourself, do I really want Shreya Uttamam? What's going to be for my ultimate benefit? Not prayas. Prayas means some temporary benefit, like getting some money or getting some romance or getting some stuff, getting some power. If that's what you're interested in, then you're not qualified to be guru, to be a disciple. If you want to know Shreya Uttamam, what really is my ultimate benefit, then you're qualified. Then you're qualified to approach a spiritual master. And that spiritual master is described Shabde. He knows the person must know the Shastra, know the transcendent of the Vedas. Pare, they have to know God. And Chanishnatam, they're so knowledgeable that they can impart that knowledge unto you. Brahmana Upashamashrayam, that they're so fixed in Brahman, detached from material life, that it's so readily apparent that they know God and that they can impart that knowledge unto you. So that's some of the qualification of spiritual master, which is referenced in Srimad Bhagavatam, the 11th canto, chapter 3, text number 21. Also, Rupa Goswami describes some in his Nectar of Instruction. And there are other places But ultimately, the guru is one who knows Krishna and who knows the science of Krishna and who can explain that to you and whose relationship really works for you. So when you're asking, where can we learn about these qualities? I've given a few references from Srimad Bhagavatam, in Bhagavad Gita also, chapter 4, text number 34 and 35. There's some description about the spiritual master. If you're really interested, Lauren, I highly recommend you take this disciple course. It's very comprehensive. It's not very long. It's very comprehensive and it gives you the resources so that you can approach that subject in a level-headed and intelligent way and confident that I can find a genuine spiritual master, a bona fide spiritual master, and not be worried about the hard lessons learned in the past. Hare Krishna. I hope that gives you a little more satisfaction and peace of mind. It can work. It really does work. And those few incidences where persons have fallen down and have failed to do that service, those are the exception. The norm is that we have many, many gurus who have been very faithful, dutiful in their service of helping others in Krishna consciousness. And it's all happening very nice. It's just not as newsworthy as when somebody fails to do so. We have many, many gurus, so many such that the GBC of ISKCON is now making plans to try to get more, really trying to encourage other devotees and inspire them to also initiate other disciples. Tarka is referencing excellent books, Spiritual Master and Disciple, which is a compilation by Shubhananda Prabhu, the Guru and what Prabhupada said by Virabahu Prabhu. Yeah, so anyway, in conclusion, Lauren, just approach it scientifically, not whimsically, not sentimentally. We have these ideas, like, for example, you have the sentimental sort of aversion because you heard of some things that have happened. Or we might have some sentimental in a positive way. Oh, the guru is just going to solve all my problems with a wave of his magic wand. No. Just approach it scientifically. And then you'll be very confident that the result is totally tangible and effective and valuable. Hare Krishna. I've talked so much. I should finish. It's 8:01. Thank you, everybody, for listening to me. Thank you for participating. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Haribo.
Hey.
Hare
Krishna. Real quickly, it's also worth mentioning that not everything that has been said about this or that guru is necessarily true. There are certain unscrupulous individuals who, perhaps motivated by some deep-seated envy, have taken it upon themselves to do all they can to badmouth sometimes ISKCON gurus in general, or some particular ones. Much has been said and written that is absolutely false. And so you have to be careful. There is an entire contingent of individuals who are opposed to all ISKCON gurus, and they have absolutely nothing nice to say about any ISKCON guru, but they have lots of nasty, slanderous things to say, which is either entirely or mostly untrue. These people have adopted the idea that only Srila Prabhupada can be the guru of ISKCON. Only he is qualified to initiate, and everyone else is usurping Srila Prabhupada's spiritual authority. And so they reject all gurus other than Srila Prabhupada. And many of them have made a full-time occupation of finding fault with ISKCON gurus and propagating falsehoods So you have to be very careful. There's a lot of nonsense going around. Otherwise, there, as Yasodeva pointed out, there's lots of good bona fide sources of information you can understand for yourself who is actually qualified, what the qualifications are. It's the responsibility of every disciple to educate themselves and to understand. Everyone's got to go through that process. I recommended 2 books here. They are excellent. They are compilations of the words of Srila Prabhupada and our previous acharyas, 100% reliable. It tells you everything that you need to know. And if you have trouble to find those books, because I think that they are out of print actually, but I can get copies of them to anyone who's interested. I can put it together in a PDF file if anyone's interested. Very important for prospective disciples, and any disciple should know these things. All right, I'll shut up now. Hare Krishna.
No, don't shut up, Prabhu. Yeah, please, if you can, Prabhu, please compile what you have and send to Lauren. You know, she's very intelligent. She's asking one of the most essential questions, and I think it's behooves us to help her to get those resources. So thank you, Lauren. And it's not just you. I mean, it reminds all of us to have to understand our relationship with the Guru and to have faith that it really does work. So thank you for asking about that. Oh, Leela Kishori Mataji has put up her digital hand. What a blessing.
Hare Krishna, good morning. Thank you for such a nice class yesterday, Dasa. Thank you so much. And I got a lot out of the class. This has nothing to do with what we were just discussing. This is just some realizations that came from what you were talking about. And reading the translation. And one of the things that struck me, and you were talking about the relationship with the spiritual master and how it evolves and changes. And I was thinking about when we started back in the early chapters in this interaction between Maharaj Rahuganath and Jad Bharat, how the king thought he knew everything. He was chastising Jad Bharat. He was like, and sarcastically, like, and really pretty much putting him down. And then you see this whole change that he's so humble now to say, first of all, he trusts the relationship. He's saying, I know I'm going to have some doubts in the future. And, when I do, I'm going to talk to you about them later, because he's trusting that God will be there for him and will bring him along, continue to bring him along. And then I love the word when he says, these instructions you've given me appear very difficult to understand, but then the humility of saying, because my mind, like, I'm not getting it. Can you simplify it for me? So that because I really want to know this. Like, I'm really hungering for this Krishna consciousness now. And so can you just make it simple where I can get it? And then whatever else comes up, I know you're going to be there for me. And that's beautiful. And I know at my initiation, Gurudev said, he was talking about a spiritual master being like our earthly, spiritual father, like bringing us along like sons and daughters. And I was thinking how I live down the street from my youngest grandkids. They're 6 and 3, and you have young kids, so and they always think they can do a bunch of stuff, but they really can't, and so then they'll try it. And then they'll say to me, like, they call me Gemma, and they'll say, Gemma, can I do this? And I'm like, well, I don't know if you can do it yet, but in time you'll be able to. And then they're like, so when I'm big, you'll show me how. And I'm like, yeah, if I'm around, I'll certainly help you with it when you're big enough to do it. And I think that some of it is that we give joy to the spiritual master as we grow and advance also. And as we serve and grow in devotional service and help other devotees along, like you said, because we're growing up. Like, we're literally spiritually growing up. And I feel very encouraged too, because I'm often intimidated when you ask me to give class. And I'm like, I have no, I said it before, I feel like I'm in Einstein's workshop and I'm a 3rd grader, and it's like, that's okay. From the mouths of babes, even a 3rd grader has something to bring to the conversation. And sometimes my 3-year-old grandson says stuff and I'm floored, I'm just like, because it's so pure and it's so honest. And he's 3. So thank you so much for this encouraging class, for talking so much about the relationship with the spiritual master, and what a sweet thing it is to have that relationship. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Leela Kishore Mataji. You always bring such sweetness, such sweet conclusions. And you give great classes. And I wish you were giving class tomorrow, but His Holiness Yadunanda Swami will give class tomorrow. So you please be prepared for next Sunday.
Hare Krishna. Will do.
Okay, yeah. Hare Krishna. When I first entered the ashram, when I was like brand new devotee, been around for like 3 weeks, and I went to stay in this ashram. We had like this contemporary men's ashram, and everyone had to give class. I hardly even read Bhagavad Gita. Everyone had to give class. And so, that's just how you learn to do. And I think that you're doing a great job. You get better and better at it. And this way we please Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya, who asked us to be guru and to share with others, to teach others, to inspire others, to help others. So thank you for being such an example of that also. All right, we should really wrap up because my kids are awake. I got him on the baby monitor, sleeping in my bed, and he's starting to stir. So if you'll excuse me, dear devotees, thank you so much for participating this morning. Tune in tomorrow morning for His Holiness Yadunandana Swami Maharaj. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri the Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Haribol.